Hello and welcome to the How of High Performance. Now, today's guest, gosh, I cannot wait for this conversation because what this incredible entrepreneur, female leader, human being has done in her life so far, it's pretty astounding. So welcome to Jenny Quigley Jones, the founder and CEO of the award-winning influencer marketing agency, Digital Voices. Jenny, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I love that a random hello on the Cannes Croisette has turned into this. It's great.
Yes, for anyone listening or watching, Jenny and I literally met because of a shared joy of fashion and just complete serendipity and an amazing hug that we had as well. And it has led
the
to
end of
today.
Cannes when you're falling apart and you just need some human connection.
I think we did cling on a little bit, didn't we? Because it was towards the end of the week.
Definitely.
Oh, so Jenny, honestly, thrilled to have you on. Thank you so much. I always think it's nice to start these conversations by just getting a little bit of context. So can you just give an overview of your career story to date so people can understand where the amazing words you're about to share come from?
Yes, my career journey has been kind of very outside marketing, although that's been what I've done for most of the last decade. So I actually started by working in the Middle East on like national security, Syrian refugee and NGO work. So that was from the age of about 21 to 26. That was what I did. And then I felt like the NGO world was quite slow paced and wasn't helping me grow my brain and my skills at the level I was hoping to. I think I was just always very impatient. So I ended up moving to tech. Typical. I think I had no expectation of being an entrepreneur, but maybe if I'd known that entrepreneurs were often impatient, it would have made sense. So yeah, then I moved to tech. So I got a job at YouTube and worked as a strategic partner manager there for about 2 years on the UK market. And then again, I felt like Google was an amazing place to learn, but I was impatient to do more and saw a bit of a gap for influencer marketing that was not just Facebook and Instagram, and that also was focused on performance and commercial growth for brands. So I left and started my own company with £500 about 8.5 years ago. And so now we've got a team of about 70 in 3 different countries. I split my time between the US, the UK, and Italy. We built our own tech. So it's been really cool to work with some incredible household brands and get to build my own business, which complete curveball, not anything I expected to do in my life.
Which is why I wanted you on the show, because I think your experience, the fact you just threw yourself into it, your entrepreneurial journey, will just have so many interesting perspectives and lessons today. And you're only just getting started. Like there's still so much more to come. So that's also really exciting to talk to you at this stage of your journey.
Thank you. Yeah, it's weird to not know not only what your business will do next, but what industry you might end up in one day. And I think that's been really an exciting part of my career. And it's kind of what I say to a lot of people who work with me as well. I'm like, you don't realize how the skills you built in a completely different industry can be applicable to this one. So yeah, 100%. Hopefully, who knows what's next.
Well, that's part of the joy, though. And I think that brings us nicely into my next question around high stakes, because high stakes is always around what's coming next. No one does know. And I think what's so fascinating as I've been doing all the interviews for the podcast and for the book, that no two definitions of high stakes are ever the same. So, Jenny, could you kindly share with us in just very human, honest language, your definition of the term high stakes?
Yeah, this was a challenging one. This like got in my brain and has really made me second guess, because initially my view of high stakes was it's not about money, it's about pressure. And it's about when you have to make a decision that will impact not just your life, but the lives of other people as well. And then when you ask personal questions, I think that's kind of different. But I would say, like, to me, high stakes is much more about the pressure you put yourself under and the impact that decision is going to have, which some people I think are very good at separating the impact of their decision from the decision itself. But for me, I think, especially for someone who's, I think, quite hyper empathetic, you can very quickly end up spiraling with these decisions because you feel the impact for other people, not just for yourself.
Fascinating. Yes, that resonates very much. So moving into your leadership and given everything you've achieved to date, is there, I'm sure there's many, but is there a key kind of high stakes leadership moment you can kindly share with us? And what I'm really interested in, Jenny, given my world is all about the how of high performance. So the key high stakes leadership moment and how you navigated through it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when people think about high stakes moments in entrepreneurship, they think about the pitches and the wins. But to me, the high stakes part of this has been, and the decisions that you're really in control of, are what happens when something goes wrong. So probably the highest stakes, because those moments are when your entire company can become disengaged. Everyone around you, if you don't show up as a leader, they lose their trust in you. Because when a pitch is going well and the company's going well, everything's easy to believe in, right? It's very easy to create a culture and excitement of success because you're on the up.
Yeah.
But I would say moments when your business is struggling, that's when you either get the investment of your team or you don't. And if you lose it, you can't, it's very hard to gain it back. So for me, the high stakes decisions are when things go wrong. So we did a restructure about a year ago. That now the business is in a great place, but a year ago it was really tricky. I think the most number of UK businesses went under in 2024 since 1995. Like, people forget how hard 2024 was as a year. So you have to approach challenges like that really carefully. And the other issue is if you run into that decision, or if you don't build trust, clarity, spend the time on something and get kind of the communication right, that's when, again, you're playing high stakes games. You can lose your team's faith. So we thought quite carefully about the restructure. We had a business where we had two different teams making the same decision, and it caused friction. It didn't make sense. So instead, I started by getting feedback from anyone who would be affected, just to say, hey, do you think this is working? So that way you give someone a space to feel heard.
Nice.
Then you plan for us an org chart that can actually solve these problems. So it's like, hey, we've listened to you. This is a potential solution. You then take that solution to key stakeholders and get feedback and buy-in from them. So it's one of those things where in your head you think, make the decision and run at it, but actually you have to slow down your decision making, and it's all about communication and trust building. And so then after getting buy-in and feedback from people, you then announce it across the team with a very clear plan. So it's not, hey, we think we found this problem, maybe this is the solution. It's, hey, I conducted multiple interviews with the team. I've heard you have this problem. Here's how we're going to solve it. Because you see this really difficult time as an opportunity to build trust. Absolutely. Rather than an opportunity to kind of share your worries. It's not about sharing your worries. It's about building trust. You then have to offer time for questions and feedback, which again, when you're a CEO in a position of stress, your number one instinct is like, get this done. Yeah. Don't let people feedback, just move on.
Make it happen. Yeah.
It's really, really hard to open yourself to feedback. I'd also say, like, I talk a lot about how feedback's a gift. And I think that's an overused phrase. But to me, feedback requires difficult conversations. Feedback requires conversations where people, if they didn't care, they would not have that conversation with you, because it makes their life so much easier not to have that conversation. So when you're getting feedback, really think like someone is deeply uncomfortable having this conversation. You're probably uncomfortable having it as well, but you're both doing it because you feel like the problem you solve is more important than your comfort. So people who do give you feedback, it's really because they care. If they didn't care, they'd be switched off.
Yeah.
And so then you have to be able to prepare to adjust that plan. But we did it in a way that took a lot of thought and time. So by the time I announced this restructure, I was bored of it. You know, we had so many discussions about it. But I think it was the smoothest I've ever sailed like a difficult sea. I mean, it's the smoothest it could have gone. And also built trust and empathy in the organization at a time where you could lose so many great team members. So I'd say that's the highest stakes decision that I've made in leadership. And it probably, the most crucial thing that I did was slow it down.
I love that. And how did you achieve that?
Random thumbs up. I'm glad Google's enjoying it. They gave it a random thumbs up.
How did you achieve that in your own self, Jenny? What kind of techniques and methods practically did you use as a leader, and more than a leader, as the founder, an entrepreneur, to be able to effectively slow it down in a way that worked?
It's tough. There's a lot. There's a lot personally. I think my initial response was a lot of self-blame. I think when things are going wrong, I always try and say internally, like, praise goes downhill, shit goes uphill. So if there's something going wrong, it's often because the founder or someone in a position of leadership has allowed it, or hasn't trained properly, or hasn't, it's very rare that someone's a malicious actor trying to burn the house down. So I think there was a lot of self-blame that I didn't vocalize for a while.
Okay.
And then at one point, I remember I was on a one-to-one with one of my senior leadership team, and I said, I feel really bad because it's my fault. And she went, oh my God, I've been feeling so bad. I thought it was my fault.
Oh, bless.
So definitely creating those moments where you can talk about it, and those moments where you're not just blaming yourself, but giving people space to just feel things. This is really woo-woo, but I also had some breathwork sessions.
Oh, I love a bit of woo-woo, Jenny. Woo-woo and I get on very well.
Breathwork. My breathwork coach also does tapping, which again I know is really woo-woo, but I think there's like this coming to terms with it in yourself. I think you also this is actually going to be my advice later for founders, but or other leaders. Your job as a leader is to be calm and rational in the face of the most existentially stressful decisions. So there have been a lot of studies done on this that say when you're in a position of financial or existential stress, you cannot make smart, rational, medium to long-term decisions. It's a human thing. All your brain can think is, I need to solve my immediate survival problem. The issue with being a founder or a leader is you are always the one who's in that position of stress. For me, I had £10,000 in savings and £500 that I invested into this company, and it's become this huge thing. So for me, it is existential every day.
Yeah.
Because this is the only asset that I have in my life, right? Not the only one. I mean,
I get it.
I bought myself a nice pair of shoes recently, but that's pretty much I'm joking. But it's really interesting because everything in your head screams, make a quick decision, react quickly. But when you're doing that, you're not doing it from a place of calm, and you're not doing it from a place of consideration. So your job as a founder or a leader is to get yourself to being resilient to deal with stressful situations and stressful decisions to a level that most people could never deal with, and you would never anticipate your team having to deal with. My aim is to get them out of survival mode thinking, and also trick my brain so it doesn't think it's in survival mode thinking.
I think that's so insightful. I was once working with a business, a global business, a founder who had a new COO, Chief Operating Officer, coming in, who'd come from a massive business. And this was an entrepreneurial global, but not a huge Goliath. And I had to say at one point to both the founder and the COO, which was fascinating because they were getting very stressed with each other, even though they wanted the same thing, but it wasn't working. And what was fascinating is they both subconsciously expected the other person to understand how they felt. And I said to it's really interesting when people are going through significant change, that often is happening. And I had to say to the founder, I said, look, you have never in your career transition job as a senior leader into something where you're not the expert, because this person also shifted industry, which is what everyone wanted. People say, I want change, I want different, and they get it. It's really uncomfortable. But this person was very successful, really senior, incredible track record, long-term service in the bigger Goliath. So they'd given all that status and security up to come and be in an entrepreneurial life. And this entrepreneur had never done that because they're an entrepreneur. So I said, you've no idea how that feels. Equally, I said to the COO, I said, you've never staked your mortgage on success. I said, you've never risked your own money to make something happen. Because they were very much about the long game. Well, we need to put this in place. And I said, no, we need to hit the bills now. If you don't get the pipeline, sod the strategy. Like you need to. And so the thinking was just so out of kilter. And I said, you've never felt that stress that an entrepreneur feels. And once I just highlighted that to each of them individually, they were like, oh my God, you're right. And then they stopped being angry because they had another level of empathy, and it just got everyone on the page.
You've raised something really interesting there. And I think in these stressful situations or, testing high stakes leadership moments, the last thing you want to do is focus on, let's share our feelings. Because you're like, feelings aren't the priority now, solve the problem, get out of it. But actually in those moments, if you have empathy with each other, and if you realize you're on the same page, you understand each other, you all might have different solutions, then you can really discuss them. But if you skip the feelings, oh, sorry, there's a lot of things. If you skip the feelings part, you end up in a situation where you can be going over the same ground again and again because you haven't corrected your assumptions.
100%.
So it also helps to give more junior people or medium or mid-level people space to be like, how are you feeling? If they're like, I feel scared, be like, great, I understand that. Because often they don't feel heard or understood by senior leadership.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine to say, hey, I hear you're scared. My job that I take very seriously is to make where you work feel emotionally safe and sustainable so that you can do your best work.
Yeah, but you also need that yourself. That's the thing I love when I work with my clients. Like, you need that. Who's giving that to you in an objective, safe way, non-stakeholder way? So as you're talking, I'm so excited because I can't wait for the book to actually come out, The How of High Performance, because there's a section in it, the emotional pillar of Real Method, talks about, are you in towards or away from energy? So that positive versus fear driven. And I sum that up in 2 words, Jenny: need and want. So notice when you're around your people and yourself, people say need a lot. It's a weird, once you get a bit kind of hyper focused, you say the word need, your whole voice, your whole mouth and face tightens. You look a bit grimacy and it sounds horrid. But I need. But if you say the word want, you're open, your mouth, your whole face is open, and it's a much nicer sound. So if people are driven by fear and stress and that kind of primeval, I've got to survive, you will hear the word need come up a lot more. It's really interesting. And there's a technique I've created called the 5-word reveal, which is a very simple, structured way to get fast emotional truth, but a structure of how to flip it so you're managing your emotional state better. Because as you're talking to me there, I'm thinking that's brilliant, but there's also a watch out. One thing people have forgotten in the last, say, 5 years is the emotional load that senior leaders have been carrying since COVID. The emotional kind of collapse of, work in and out of life, whether you believe in a whole life or a structured life or whatever, but suddenly it was like, boof, everything blew up. And leaders have been carrying that emotional load. So I think there's a delicate line to balance between inviting emotion in, but knowing how to keep it where it needs to be, rather than letting like a, crazy kind of, destructive force in the business. But anyway, I think we could do a whole other podcast on that, but let's get back to this one.
I think it's leaders, but I also think it's team members. Like, I can see there was someone on my team who's mid-level, promoted to quite a senior role, but she's not on the SLT, so she was head of department. And she was getting really nervous about contracts, especially employment contracts. She was running the largest team in the company, doing a lot of hiring and firing. And she said, I keep thinking when someone complains to HR, or when there's, someone starts, because when people leave, sometimes they leave and they want to find a way to get more money and settle, which is completely fine. Yeah. She says, I keep imagining I'm going to go to prison.
Oh, bless her.
And I said, I promise there's no way you're going to go to prison.
Oh, bless.
But I think so many people, because they're working at home, they're out of their comfort zone, they're super accountable for their work. They put so much pressure on themselves to get everything right the first time.
Of course.
And this kind of touches on, I would love your thoughts on this, because as I went through thinking about personal life moments and leadership, which is our next question, moments, the next question, I kind of came to this realization that like high stakes leadership decisions aren't made in one decision.
I love
they
that.
are the small micro moments where you decide what you want and where you don't, where you also continue to live according to those values. They're the promises you keep to yourself. Like, I know I am a better and more resilient business leader because I trust myself, because when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I choose to go to the gym. I tell myself I'm going to, and I do. I tell myself in a personal relationship that I have boundaries, so I'll walk away if I'm disrespected. Every time I do that, I build trust in myself. And so I think it's really interesting, because we think there are all these high stakes moments that define your career, but actually very few moments are ever like you can't pull back or redo or edit slightly. I was thinking about moving countries, relationships, family, friends, listening to people, changing career paths. All of that is a series of micro decisions that you make.
Mm-hmm. And macro. Some
yeah.
of those are pretty macro. So let's go into that question, if I may, Jenny. Is there a personal, because I'm a great believer when I work with my leaders, I'm not working with a job title, I'm not working with an EBITDA, I'm working with a human. And humans have stuff going on outside of life that influences their leadership and vice versa. But I'm a great believer, actually, ironically, people can get a bit twitchy about this, but I don't believe you should bring your whole self to work. I believe you should be
I agree with you,
authentic,
actually.
but I think there's boundaries and difference. If I came on this call and chatted to you like you were my sister, I don't even have a sister, so I don't know how to do that. I've got a brother, but it would be odd because the rules of the game are very different. Okay, so I think it's great to have separation, but I also think we should respect and look after the leader's life to get their high performance in work, because if we ignore that, we do it at our peril. So can you share, if you're willing to, a high stakes moment from your personal world, and they're very much they focus on how you navigated through it?
Yeah, I think you're entirely right, actually, on the bringing your whole self to work. I think you can bring aspects of your personality. You can be authentic to who you are, but also, like, I think it does a lot of people a disservice to have to bring their whole selves to work. I would rather see a lot of people in their most professional. I want to see them as professional and accountable on how they choose to present. I don't need to know, as a CEO, everything about your problems.
How's
If
your
they affect
hamster?
your work, great. We can, yeah, yeah. It's also like we have therapy at work for a reason. So we have SPIL, we have free mental health support for everyone. But it's so that they can work through those things and then bring the issues they need to. Like I've worked with a member of staff who is really anxious, and one of the biggest issues, well, the way I manage her is I don't let that anxiety define her. She will say, oh, this comes up in my personal life. We'll have a short discussion about it, but I still expect her to do her job at this level. And because I hold her to that standard, she gets there. I think she also has so much pride that she would hate to think that she was, I don't know, being diminished in her career because
Yeah.
she feels anxious. That then spirals the anxiety. So yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, there are so many moments that have been pivotal in my career or personal life. Like I've changed careers a lot, so I've gone from working with refugees to working in marketing.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's quite
I
different.
have moved country. I've moved country a lot. I ended my last relationship, which was a proper relationship, was an engagement about 2 years ago.
Right.
And the person I was with is a good person, is a lovely person, but they moved country and their treatment of me changed. It wasn't the same way they used to treat me, and it wasn't the contract, to be honest, we agreed to. It wasn't what I signed up for. And you can't propose to someone and then change the way you treat them. It's not okay. So I mean, we communicated about it. I thought about it a lot. I thought about my values. I think if you're going to have these decisions, give them a lot of time. Same way in professional leadership. Take the urgency out of it. Actually think, okay, if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, this deserves due diligence, right? It deserves a strong process, because the most important decision that people make in their lives, particularly men, I think, actually, is who's your partner. For women, it's fascinating. The person most likely to kill you in the world is a family member.
Joy.
That studies have shown that men who are married are happier, less stressed, and add years onto their life. Women who are married are more stressed and lose years of their life.
Oh, Jenny.
So this it's terrible, but it's a decision that just should be made really carefully. So take the urgency out of it. Think about what your requirements are from a person. Think about your values. Think about the future you want. Communicate it. Have those discussions. Communicate your needs. And we got to a stage where we discussed it and couldn't come to a solution. So in that moment, I decided to leave, and I gave back a very nice ring and had to move all of my things out of. He lives in Bermuda, so I had to move all of my things out of our Bermuda home. But actually, like, I honestly think we're both happier for it.
Good.
So I think trying to remove the high stakes from it, and trying to also, when you make these decisions, if they're personal or leadership wise, the temptation all the time is to go back, because you always have opportunities.
Yes. Comfort in what you know, even if it's not good. There's a comfort in not being good, because you know how to navigate.
So one of the things Exactly. And so one of the things I do is I'm a big fan of having somewhere written down that you can refer back to why you made that decision.
Good.
Because then in those moments where you want comfort, you have something you can refer to at least make an informed decision.
I love that.
Because everyone gets lonely. Everyone has moments where they'd, love to go back to the way things were. I think about the company when it were only 10 people, and I miss that sometimes. But as long as you have a reference point, so you can make sure you're making a rational decision rather than just a nostalgic one, I think that's really helpful.
I couldn't agree more. I think also just the physical act of old-fashioned writing as well, I think has a real power, because you're processing it and you're literally putting something onto paper that has its own place and it's separate to you. So I think it's really powerful. Okay, so it's interesting because that one's come up, leaving significant relationships in the interviews I've
Has it come up a lot?
It has, yeah. It's I think it's leaving a marriage, walking away from success, coping with redundancy, and the ultimate, I think, high stakes in life is grief and loss. They've kind of been the common four if I look back on all the interviews I've done so far. Very significant, high stakes, very impactful life events. Huge. Okay, so lessons, because I'm a very practical person and I like to get things down into structured instructional steps and how-tos. Jenny, could you share with us the key lessons thus far in your leadership and life journey, but more focused now from the work angle? This is for senior leaders like yourself, so experienced founders, successful founders, or C-suite in a big successful business, talking to your peers. For other senior folk, what would be your key lessons to help them navigate high stakes for the how of high performance?
I'd say number one is take the urgency out of the decision.
Mm-hmm.
If you're reacting from a place of urgency or a place of stress, you're probably not making the best decision anyway. So
thumbs up.
Sorry, Google's thank you, Google. Hang on, this is the most fun one. Let's see if this works. I don't know if it will. Is it going to work? Oh no! There you go.
Oh wow!
Anyone watching that can have a free moment of enjoyment. So yeah, joys of Google systems. So number one, I would say take the urgency out of it. Most decisions, even if they feel urgent and your body tells you to react immediately, that's when you're reacting from a place of stress. So give it, even if it's 5 minutes or a 10-minute walk. I'm a big fan of if something's really stressing you out, go and do a 10-minute, 30-minute walk before you need to make a quick decision. Talk to people around you is number two. Make sure you're getting other people's opinions. Make it safe for them to share those opinions, but literally share both your feelings and also share your opinions so that you've created a space to make an informed decision. And I'd also say it's often, so number three is separate. The decision is never just one moment. The decision is all these micro moments around it, all those other things you put in place that affirm that decision is correct. So say, for example, it's a decision to pitch for a big client. It's not won or lost the day you email them. It's not won or lost the day you get the brief. It's not won or lost the first call. It's not won or lost even in the room. It's not won or lost when you're reviewing your Teams deck. It's not even won or lost when you're agreeing the contract. It's a whole process that gets to these pivotal moments. And I think in society, we've become so fixated on the big moments that change your life, the silver bullet. Whereas actually it's not really those moments at all. It's everything you do around them to show that you are prepared for a win, or prepared to deal with something difficult, or prepared to truly walk away.
Yeah.
It's a longer term structure that you have to build. And if you're making immediate, rapid decisions, you're not building that longer term structure and you're not doing it in a considered way. So stop making high stakes moments so high stakes.
I love that. And then any more before we move on? Just checking. They were great. Well, just don't want to be presuming.
My advice, I think we talked about this in this earlier, but yeah, in times of stress, accept that the people around you, if they feel like they're at risk financially, or they're not safe, or they can't afford to survive, or whatever, they're not reacting in a rational way. So I would say leaders I find it very frustrating watching leaders have this victim complex around when someone who's, say, being let go, or someone who has just lost a pitch, when they react irrationally. But the privilege and the hardest part of being a leader is that you're supposed to be the one who's rational to all of this. So you have to get your head to nearly an inhuman state where you're not existentially worried, even though it is your existence. So you have the privilege of building this resilience. It will hurt and it will feel really hard, but it's a privilege. And don't expect other people who are not making the same decisions of leadership as you to be able to cope in the same way you can.
I think that's really insightful. I couldn't agree more. Is that your number one sort of killer piece of advice? Because I slightly changed my structure with you there. Where I would go is, if you could only give one piece of advice to a fellow senior leader, is that the one?
Yeah, I think so. Your job is to make these decisions rationally in a borderline inhuman way. So that's the cost and reward of your job.
Yeah, it's real. That's really real. And so there's this one question I want to ask before I say thank you so much. Because of my fascination / obsession with how, and you're talking about managing that resilience, almost inhuman, having that real clarity, holding your place, not reacting. Are there some simple techniques that you've acquired through learning how to do that yourself, Jenny, that you can share with other people? Because I think in theory that sounds absolutely rational, doesn't it? I think the challenge is
in reality,
how do I do that when it's difficult?
Honestly, it's funny because I did come from, I've spent time in my life in refugee camps. So I know I've watched kids hearing planes above them run under their mum's legs and hide under a chair or a bed because they're so scared they're going to get bombed. So what I always try and say is, like, we are not saving lives. It is okay to shut your laptop and give yourself 10 minutes of literally just breathing, staring into space, getting outside. If you add urgency to a decision, if you add urgency to being reactive, you make it toxic. So as soon as you feel yourself, and you can feel it in your body, I think you can feel your heart starts to beat a bit faster, you're breathing, you get maybe a knot in your stomach because you're a bit angry, something's not being handled the way you want it to, and you go to type on your phone and you can tell you're typing faster, you're just a bit angry. In that moment, that's when you have to stop yourself, and you have to learn what those signs are in yourself that you are making a reactive decision and you're doing something irrational that is beneath the position of leadership. That's not how leaders react. That's how micromanagers react.
Yeah.
So in those moments, just stop. It's okay. No one's going to die. It's fine. That's how I tend to deal with it. Writing helps a lot. So if you have something that you're really stressed about, literally you can, I know it sounds woo-woo, but literally just put down some pages on it, and at least then you can rationally know. I think also having someone you can talk to as another senior person in your company or someone outside your company to just say, hey, I need to vent for a moment. I don't need advice. I just need to vent. So I'm done.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. And I've had my chief client officer, there have been moments where I'm like, we should react this way. And I'll vent. And I watch her smile, just like a corner of her mouth will smile like, oh, Jenny's going to realize in a minute that if she reacts this way, it's the wrong thing to do. And then I'll pause and she'll be like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, one of my clients taught me this, actually, because they'd been given the advice somewhere else. So I'm not claiming it as mine, but I think it's brilliant. Where you do clarify when someone's coming to you, you say, right, do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to coach? Or do you want me to come up with some solutions? Or do you just need a hug? Like, actually asking, what is it you're looking for? Because that was a mistake when I had a business and staff underneath me. I used to flip between mentoring and managing and coaching all the time. And that was confusing for me. It's a long time ago now, but I can look back and think, my poor staff, my poor team, because they'd be like, God, what mode is she in right now? Like, I thought she gave me the signal that I could
and
just
they're
be
having
honest.
to read you.
Yeah. And like as you're talking about, and when you're the founder, you're thinking, God, the pipeline's down, or we're in a recession, or, that's just gone wrong with that client. And you really bloody care. That's a kind of dangerous coin to, like, the flip of that coin between caring and then being a bit over expectations on other people. Because there's a reason you're the founder and other people aren't. Not that you give them a get out of jail card and don't try. Like you said, standards. I'm a great fan of standards too. But I think you used a brilliant word earlier. You were talking around this word, which is perception. I think making sure your perception is accurate for the situation you're navigating. And I think that's a great message for everyone to hear.
I also think you've raised a lot of interesting points, and it's reminded me that, so the first time we ever had financial difficulties in the company, it was years ago, and we basically had to use our own revenue and profits to expand to the US to build tech. So being profitable is crucial, because I don't even have a house I could put up as collateral. There is no loan. There literally is our profit, and that's it. So we've had to be really careful with cash flow. So the first time we ever had kind of struggles, which was when we were expanding to the US, which cost like $400,000, building tech was another $500,000 that year. So it was expensive. And we had to lay off 3 people, and the business was smaller. And I took that so personally. I did an AMA. I let the entire company ask me anonymous questions, and I answered every single one. From that point onwards, we started weekly tracking and sharing where we were at compared to targets, where we were at compared to break even. I think it was too much. Like, now we have a tracker and we announce it every month, and we do a monthly financial update. But I felt like, oh my God, if I don't want any of my team to be blindsided, so I should give them all this information. And I think transparency is good, but there's also too much transparency.
People worry. People worry, and they need enough. I was talking, as I've been writing the book, I've been writing about, no one likes a vacuum. And other leaders I've interviewed, we've talked about that, like about the danger of, in fact, Rob Pierre, who we both have in common, again, through our CAN connection as well, he was talking, like many others of the great leaders I've been interviewing, like inaction is almost, it's the worst thing you can do, because then it creates a vacuum. And from my experience...
How did it do that? It just didn't...
But inaction creates that vacuum, and then people feel the need to fill it. But I think if you overwhelm people with too much information, they're not equipped for it. Okay, Jenny, is there one more thing you'd like to share?
I was going to say, I think there's a balance. I think there's acknowledging that you have a problem and you're solving it, but saying, hey, we know that this isn't going well. Trust us, we're finding a solution. I think inaction is awful when you're burying your head in the sand and everyone feels like no one's acknowledging a truth. So I would say, but that doesn't mean rush into reactive actions that haven't been approached with consideration.
It's back to that piece around perspective, and also wisdom and judgment and maturity. And maturity isn't an age thing, it's an experience thing. But and also, I think what I'd like to end on in this conversation is sometimes it's okay to not get it right as well. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves for high performance, for getting it right. But equally, if you embrace and let yourself get over when you do mess it up, then you can recover quicker, and you're not carrying shame or guilt or doubt, because that just eats away at you, it erodes you. So I think forgiveness and being kind to yourself is also really important. On that note,
that we could always use.
Jenny, you've been very kind to share your wisdom with us, your generosity, your openness. I could keep talking to you for a very long time, but I know we've got to wrap this up. So thank you so much for being an incredible guest on the How of High Performance.
Thank you, Sally. It's been a joy. Thanks so much.